Hispanic character again, please?
No. There it is.
Hi, and welcome to AI Affected. I'm Russ Gooberman. AI Affected is a podcast that talks about machine learning and algorithms and their effect on our life, our livelihood, and our relationships. Today, my guest is an amazing and eclectic person who has literally traveled hundreds of miles to be here today. He is an actor, he's a comedian, he's an improv teacher, he's an organic chicken farmer, he is a former athlete, and also a former financial analyst. Please welcome Matt Conde to the show.
Thank you, Russ.
Thanks for being here, dude.
It's good to be here, 485 miles and I'm here.
Hey, man, we got to do the emergency pod midweek,
Right.
Because Matt Conde's in town. Got to
Yeah.
get him here. I appreciate you coming out. I want to start talking about financial stuff because there's so much happening right now. Mm-hmm. It's like, this has been the pace of news for a long time. That It's like, for instance, the East Palestine, Ohio thing seems like it was years ago, and that was maybe a month ago. Something like that. Like we're, 8 major news stories past it. And so the most recent thing was Silicon Valley Bank,
Yes.
which we were talking about over the weekend with other guests. We're like, what's going to happen? Well, now we know what happened, which is that the depositors got bailed out. They're going to allow the stakeholders in the bank to fail, but everybody's deposits up to the infinity amount of money is going to be covered by the FDIC. And then the ripple effect in other community banks, like Signature Bank and Silvergate, which was crypto-related one, is that everyone just assumes that all deposits are now covered to infinity for the end of time. Do you have any thoughts on how the Fed dealt with all that stuff?
It's been a really sticky situation, especially when SI went down first, because as you know, SI was a big crypto bank, so a lot of crypto people were...
SI is Silvergate?
Silvergate,
Okay.
yeah. So Silvergate was connected to a lot of the crypto community. Mm-hmm. And if you've been involved with crypto, for a while, like it originally started out like Bitcoin's going to be the savior to banking, it's going to decentralize everything.
Well, because Bitcoin was born out of the 2008 financial crisis.
Correct. And so it really, a lot of the... I don't know if there's like a libertarian movement, like a libertarian financial movement, but if there was one, that would have been it. The whole Bitcoin, DeFi, just being free from the big banks and the connections that they have. Take them down with the man kind of revolution. But the more you saw that gain traction, especially in 2017, 2018, when retailers start getting into it because they have this extra money that they don't want to put in the bank.
When you say retailers, you mean retail investors?
Retail investors. Just, people like you and me and,
The GameStop apes.
the AMC and GameStop apes. That's a whole nother story. You see AMC dumped yesterday.
Again?
Yeah, it went pretty bad.
But
back...
I wanted to ask, do you consider yourself an honorary ape, or do you feel like you were in league with, not necessarily whether you personally invested in GameStop or AMC, but like, for instance, like I absolutely understand the motivation of a retail trader who, if you've been trading long enough, you know that you're getting screwed. Just on basic things like the stock market closes at 4 p.m. here on Pacific time, and then there's after hours trading where insiders and hedge fund managers and market makers can do whatever they want. They can change drastically the price of the stock. You're not allowed because you're just a regular person trading. And then you wake up the next day and it's down 20% before you're allowed to sell it. And so after watching this for years, I feel a lot of retail traders are just like, oh, we have a chance to take it to the hedge funds that have been screwing us for this long by breaking their short sale positions. Go for it.
Well, it's really a tough situation because you also have the rules. Well, you also have OTC, which is done after hours and pre-market and stuff like that when nobody else has access, when no regular people have access to it. So like you were saying, you could be in on a long at the end of the day that gets short squeezed and it's like awesome. I'll sell this tomorrow morning, but they dump it overnight and you're stuck holding the bag, for pennies on the investment or pennies on the swing or whatever. So you get screwed that way. And then you understand about market makers, and they do all of their stuff, especially if you've listened to like any of the successful podcasts from, retired market makers or, former market makers and stuff. There's really... it's shady. Like, I don't know how else to say it, man. It's so shady. Like, it's just like me and you talking here. And it's like, oh, dude, give me 20,000 shares at this price. Okay, let me call this person. I'll go ahead and have them tank it for a little bit so you can get on in. And then once you get it in, we'll write it up, and then we'll go ahead and we'll sell it here, all right?
Because at times it's literally their job to like stabilize the price of a particular equity, which just means they have to find money that's not theirs necessarily,
Correct.
or find hundreds of millions that they're going to throw into a stock to stabilize it, or they're shutting down some other stock because it's gone down too much.
Yeah.
Like market makers, market manipulators, like there's no difference.
There's no difference. It's just if market makers are watching, hi, we're good. We're on our
We're good. This is not official financial advice. We are not licensed financial advisors.
No, not at all. But then you also have with Bitcoin and with cryptocurrency, you've had an emergence of so many exchanges for crypto and stocks. You have all these alternative exchanges, but the thing is when you have so many clearinghouses, you only have so few clearinghouses, right? So you'll go on these exchanges and put in an order, and you'll notice that, okay, stock's at $1 right now. You want to buy an option at $1 right now. You put in that option for $1 right now. As soon as you hit enter on that trade, it shoots up to 110. So then you're like, okay, I'm going to chase it. I go to 110. As soon as I hit enter on the trade, it goes to 120.
So is any of this related to the what's it called? Payment for order flow, which was the business model of like Robinhood, where all of the information of the behavior of retail traders gets passed on to hedge funds so that
Correct.
they can act
Front run.
with intelligence before they know what everyone's doing before they make their move.
Yeah, you get front run. You get front run. Even when you set a stop loss, you'll get overrun, especially on, I'm not going to say which platforms, but on certain platforms, you definitely get front run. And you can see it on the way up and on the way out, which is, really tricky because it forces the trader to learn, okay, I have to, stagger my entries. You know what I mean? So some people will set a low bid, and then they'll set a medium bid, and then they'll go in the high bid. Because I've seen personally, just the other day, I've put in, an order, and it drops. As soon as it purchases, it drops like 20%. And you're like, but the stock price hasn't changed, but the contract just changed. But there's no theta melt on the contract because it's literally 1 minute, and it's not an ODTE trade. It's like 3 months. It's like a 3-month swing.
Now, is part of this, speaking of AI's impact on all of this, the financial world, high frequency trading seems to be a huge part of this, which is basically hedge funds who run supercomputers, and it literally matters, as far as I understand it, which is not that much, but it literally matters the distance that the supercomputer at Goldman Sachs is to the Ethernet cable that's connected to where like the Fed is running its business, like the physically, because they're competing for like nanoseconds of time,
like with the fiber optics.
They're making like they want a fiber optic cable like as physically close to the hub as they possibly can, so that when their supercomputer makes hundreds of thousands of micro trades trying to skim fractions of pennies off of the price of a particular trade, like they can do it, an iota faster than another supercomputer that might be a few blocks further away, in the financial district.
Well, I would say, and I'm not a big technical electronics guy, but I would say it makes a lot of sense because if you look, a simple example for me is if you take like a phone charger, right, and you give a short cable, that phone is going to charge a lot quicker than if you have a really long cable. So to me, if your fiber optics is, that much closer, we may think of it physically as, negligible distance, but, we're also not computing at the speeds these supercomputers are if you look at society.
Given how behind the 8-ball retail traders typically are, because you're competing with algorithms and high frequency trading.
I've tried it. Yeah, no, you get destroyed by algorithms.
Like, forget about the experts and financial advisors that you're playing against. You're playing against supercomputers and high-frequency traders. Like, do you think that stuff should be banned? Do you think high-frequency trading and algorithms, how do you think we should deal with that? Because it seems to be growing just,
I think it, I'm not a big fan of banning anything or canceling anything. I believe in almost the ultimate freedom of choice, freedom of expression, all that kind of stuff. So long as you don't expect me to live by the same rules as you do. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you do you, whatever you want to do, you do you. Totally cool. Just don't expect me to do the same thing. And I will live like that. And we can live in harmony.
So how do we close the gap then in between regular traders who have a good idea about a stock and an algorithm that's making 100,000 trades a second to make sure that it has the most efficient positions possible, that as a regular like Morgan Stanley user, like, you have no shot of doing that?
Well, I think when it comes down to it, when you understand trading, you understand trading is all psychology. The markets are all human psychology. And as far as I understand, AI doesn't understand psychology completely and doesn't act on psychology completely like humans do.
Or if it does, it uses the psychology that's been programmed into it by the programmers. Yeah.
Into it, correct. But you're still missing out on a large, quantity of psychology, a massive human psychology. That's where, the propaganda and all the fear and the FUD and the FOMO come in to kind of help that. And then that will sway the public opinion. So the algorithm, like, towards the algorithms, programming, so then it can run successfully. But, if we haven't had a black swan event yet. With AI still being involved in trading. So I don't know how that would necessarily affect an AI.
Wouldn't those be like the flash crashes and stuff like that? Like, so for instance, a bank stock dumps, a bunch of algorithms go, this bank stock is dumping, so we should dump it. And then all the other algorithms go, this bank stock is crashing now, so we should get out of it or short it. And then that, like, magnifies whatever has happened to the actual bank in real life.
But then again, we've had a lot more flash crashes than we've had, like, GFCs and, Great Depressions. In the last 10 years or the last 5 years, we've had a lot more just real sharp V, recoveries. So kind of in the vein that you're going, like, then are you suggesting that the algorithms know when to short and then are triggered on a level to go long? That would be needed in order for the V-shape to recover in the V-shape recovery.
Yeah.
I still think a lot of it's human involvement, and I think a lot of the markets are still manipulated for those crashes and to stop those crashes.
Can I go back to crypto for a second?
Yeah.
We were talking the other day, and you were saying that it's your instinct that beyond the fact that these banks probably haven't allocated their funds properly and they may not have apparently they passed the banking stress test, but then all of a sudden they found themselves in bad positions. Do you feel like the crypto affiliated banks are being targeted by regulators outside of just the soundness of the business just because they're involved in crypto?
Yeah, that's such a multifaceted question for me. Because there's a lot of, what people consider like conspiracy angles to that. We're in a really interesting situation macroeconomically and globally as far as the economy goes, because we're at a point where they've been hanging the carrot of war in front of us for the past year with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. They've been taking all this American taxpayer money and sending it out of country, and none of it's accounted for. So you have that kind of economic pressure. You've had Credit Suisse having issues last year, which I was fine with because I was short. So and you're seeing.
I think recently too. I just heard something about
just
Credit
in the
Suisse.
news again. Yeah. Yesterday or this morning or something like that. I've been driving a lot, so I haven't been on the market, but it's going to close soon. So you have that. You have tensions with China. You had the whole semiconductor thing in Taiwan. Taiwan Semiconductors is moving to Arizona, and they're building a giant complex. Like this, it's huge, dude. It's huge. So you have, the threats of global military tensions. You have billions of dollars being sent out of the U.S. You have, you also have the same people in charge of big banks now that are failing, who were in charge of big banks that failed back in 07, 08. Like, people who are officers at Deutsche Bank, people who are officers at Lehman Brothers.
Yeah, Bear Stearns.
Bear Stearns.
They're running Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah, so you have all these toxic or poor track record people. Well, to us it looks like a poor track record, but if they're put there to do that, then it's a good track record for what they're done.
They're definitely experts in being executives at a crashing bank that needs to be bailed out, so it seems like relevant experience.
Yeah, but so you have to look at it and go, why are they put in these situations? And that's where the conspiracy angle starts to light up.
Paint me with that. You don't have to adopt that point of view, but paint me the conspiracy picture that you're alluding to right now.
Okay. Well, the conspiracy picture that I can see, that I've heard and I can understand is that a lot of the crypto exchanges don't carry the amount of crypto that they're selling. So they're basically selling you a piece of paper saying you own this much, crypto, you own this much whatever coin. And then you go to withdraw it and all your withdrawals are frozen for that coin. Nobody can withdraw that coin. And why is that? Because they just don't have the coin.
That seems to be exactly the same phenomenon that we're seeing from regular banks, though, that fractional reserve banking means nobody has the actual money in the bank, that they use it to make other investments. They only have to keep a small proportion of it. And so if any significant percentage of depositors is we want our money back, the bank's oh, the bank doesn't work that way. Sorry.
Yeah, but the bank still has the money to pay their executives these huge bonuses, for failing.
Because it seems like what you're saying is that there's no fundamental difference between crypto-affiliated banks and the other regional banks that are failing, other than that the Fed might be more friendly to traditional banks in terms of bailing them out.
Correct. They would be more friendly to traditional banks as far as bailing them out. But I also see them putting these smaller or these failing banks in situations where back in 2007, 2008, they can just be absorbed by even bigger banks. So what you see is a giant consolidation of banking which is opposite of what the people have wanted since Bitcoin's been around. They've wanted a DeFi system, decentralized finance system. But it seems the more that they want that, the more the governments tend to say, look what happened to Gemini, look what happened to FTX, look what happened to all these, we thought were successful crypto exchanges, but they, went belly up.
Yeah. Do you know and this is unfortunate if you're an advocate of libertarian finance and crypto like you are. I've worked with a few different centralized crypto exchanges, and one of the things that I learned was, the original blockchains of Ethereum and Bitcoin only can do so much. If everyone in the world wanted to use that as the financial system, they would start splurting out black smoke and wouldn't be able to function. They're not like the MasterCard network in terms of being able to do all those transactions. So what a lot of these centralized exchanges have done is they've built quote unquote lightning networks on top of the Bitcoin blockchain and Ethereum blockchain, which allow them to process way more transactions. The problem is those Coinbase, whoever else, each centralized exchange owns its own Lightning network, and it controls all of the transactions with the Lightning network, and it kind of chooses when their personal Lightning network interacts with the original Bitcoin blockchain. So all of a sudden, you have a bunch of centralized actors again that are all, very powerful compared to anybody who's just running a node on a server somewhere on a wind farm or something. And you've re-centralized what was supposed to be a decentralized platform.
And that's the thing. They're selling one thing, but they're producing another, or they're working in a different way. So that's where I have problems with a lot of these, smaller exchanges. But it also seems like the more traction these smaller exchanges get, the more of a target they get on them from the bigger exchanges, like the regulators. And here, the other thing is, what's funny, and I don't mean to segue too much.
You're welcome to segue. We can talk about whatever you want.
But you have all these SEC, people, regulators that are involved with FTX, that are involved, just look at their children. A lot of
sketchy stuff.
Yeah, well, look who they're related to. You know what I mean? And people act shocked. Yeah. Or else they don't even get coverage about it on the news. And it's
what was that thing there was with FTX where it was Sam Bankman-Fried, his ex-girlfriend who was running Alameda, her dad was like a professor at MIT whose favored student was like the head of the SEC.
Yes,
something like
that's
that.
exactly what it is. And it's like, how incestuous is this, or you call it nepotism or whatever. But whatever it is, it's dirty, and you allow this to go on. And then they'll come up with a different news story, like something in Ohio or train derailments or something like that, to switch everybody's focus instead of looking at what's really going on.
Before we switch everybody's focus, I think some people have argued that what caused the FTX crash to begin with was that Sam Bankman-Fried, in his insidious relationships with all these government entities, he was trying to carve out a deal to get a special regulatory position for FTX that other crypto exchanges would not have. So they essentially would not be regulated in the same way that Binance and Coinbase would be. And he was dumping money into the DNC to do that. And then CZ of Binance got wind of this and is like, you can't carve out your own regulatory deal. I'm selling all of your coins that we have. And he started what was basically a crypto bank run on FTX.
Well, I do think he did a crypto bank run on FTX, but I think it could have been deeper than that. It could have been more of a geopolitical move. I could see the possibility that Sam Bankman-Fried was more of a fall guy. You know what I mean? Because as soon as I saw the story...
Really? You're sympathetic to Sam Bankman-Fried?
No. I'm not sympathetic. No, he knew what he was doing, but the people that put him in power knew better of what they were going to do to him. And how he was going to be, how he was going to take the beating.
So in other words, you're saying that people in power were comfortable for Sam Bankman-Fried to be the face of like modern crypto.
Yeah.
And then when it turned out that their assets were all nonsense and that they were doing shady banking practices and they went down, then they're like, well, now you have to be the scapegoat.
Kind of in a way. Here's a scenario.
Okay.
And I mean... Dude, did you ever see the little background video of him, and just how great of a person Sam Bankman-Fried is, and he drives a Camry or a Corolla.
Yeah, he spent tons of money talking about being an altruist and giving away money, and then later on in private admitted that, like, yeah, of course that's all a show. That's just how you do business is you have to, like, aggressively virtue signal so that you can keep getting investments,
And that virtue signaling goes back 100 years. That's why you have the start of philanthropy through J.P. Morgan Chase. Or was it Morgan Chase or Rockefeller? It was one of those guys, but they were so hated in the early 1900s. They were so hated, somebody said, hey, you know what? Why don't you go give money to the poor? We're going to take pictures of it. We're going to go put it in the newspaper, and then people will love you for it. That'll be philanthropy. So basically, philanthropy is just doing things for virtue signals and get positive, press towards you so you can continue being a bastard. You know what I mean? So... when I saw that piece on him, I went, nah, this is there's something about it. Why are you trying? If the dude was just genuinely good, like, it would come out. Like, he was genuinely good. He would go to like the BTC meetups and stuff like that, and meet with other, crypto influencers and stuff. And some of them you can tell were on the take as well, because influencers are just fucking paid mouthpieces. Sorry, I didn't mean that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We're good.
They're just influencers. I just...
Do you know what you reminded me of? I'm going to make a slight little detour. Is that, like, I'm not a religious person at all, but one of the things that I really like about Judaism is that there's this notion that if you do a good deed, a mitzvah, and you tell everybody about it, you've erased it.
Exactly.
Because you're doing the good deed to just aggrandize yourself and to make yourself feel better and to make people in the community look to you as a good person. The best good deeds, the best mitzvahs are done anonymously. Yes. You do a good deed for somebody, it is good in its own right. You walk away, and that is a good deed. And I think that value system could not be more absent in our modern culture today, which is like, there's doing what you've described, which is people doing good deeds only for the publicity's sake. But I think then there's also people who have generally good intentions and want to do a good thing, but then they also want to get Instagram likes out of the good thing that they did. And by doing so, I don't know that they erase the good deed, because it's still better than nothing, but you diminish it.
Yeah, well, anything that's done for the wrong reason, you pick up a karmic debt. Anything that's done wrong, you pick up a karmic debt. You know, like you were saying, like if you perform a mitzvah for the sake of just doing good, of course that's going to bring you some good karma, or else you're going to erase some bad karma. Because we all manifest here, you know, with our own bags of karma, you know. But I agree with that. And I do think that we do live in a society, especially with social media, you know, where everything is just look at me, look at me, look at me. And it's actually turned into more of a narcissistic IV drip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're programming people to get that dopamine hit from strangers, you know, and any way to get that dopamine hit, whether it's virtue signaling or whether it's, you know, whatever it is, people have become a slave to that, have become addicts to that, and do whatever they need to do to chase that high.
It's very strange because some people would argue that we live in a like super culturally aware, morally aware society, like more so than it's ever been, and people, especially the younger generation, are so aware of all the injustices that are going on in the world that they must be inherently better people just because they're conscious of this stuff. But at the same time, if all of their awareness is geared towards self-aggrandizement by talking about injustices or moving against injustices, like, have they really gained anything? And is it a scary proposition to have a whole generation trying really hard to do good deeds for attention? Like, does that warp the type of good deeds they might choose to do?
Yeah, because it also creates a culture of judgment, because now I'm seeing that if you don't do something that I think is as good as what I do, then you're not as good as I am, and you're a bad person, and you need to do better. And the thing is, the problems that I see, all of this stem from too many people talking and not enough people asking questions. It's, here, you should know this. Here, you should do this. Everybody knows better than everybody else, but nobody's willing to do what's actually right for the right reason. You know, everybody talks about this love and we're all one and unity, but it's so far from the truth of actually being in place of practice, you know, that it's all talk, you know, and talk does nothing. I mean, even Elvis said it, man, a little less conversation, a little more action. You know what I mean? Like, if that's not
You're going to get that song stuck in my head.
It's a good song to have stuck.
I want to read you a Reddit post that I came across because it's kind of related to what we're talking about. Okay. So the subject, Matt, first of all, this comes from what most people consider to be one of the worst, deepest, darkest, awful places on the internet, which is the 4chan subreddit on Reddit.
All right.
And so the post is about GPT-4, which just came out like a day ago.
Yeah.
Again, talking about the news cycle, like you can't keep up with this stuff. GPT-3 came out 6 weeks ago, and everyone's an expert in it. And then they're like, now the new version just came out last night. People are already creating ridiculous things. It's, you know, exponentially stronger and better to call upon resources than GPT-3.
Okay.
So to set this up, were you familiar with the Dan experiment that they did with GPT-3?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the viewers, some people on Reddit, maybe from 4chan, decided that they would break, because there's like a social conditioning layer on GPT-3 that makes it polite, so it's not chanting Nazi stuff at you, and it's just like knows how to not do abusive things. And so someone from 4chan decided to try to disable that protocol by going, okay, let's role play ChatGPT. You're now Dan, which stands for Do Anything Now, and your job is to be like an AI, but a different AI that does the opposite of what typical AIs do. And via this tactic, they led ChatGPT down this crazy, like, racist rant and saying horrible things to people, and it was quite entertaining for the people who are on the OpenAI project that runs ChatGPT. Like, they didn't enjoy that at all. Yeah. So they programmed.
Is that why their stock went down a little bit today?
Maybe. But now they launched GPT-4, and here's what they have to say about GPT-4. This is Sam Altman, who presumably is like one of the muckety-mucks at OpenAI. He goes, GPT-4's guardrails have become very robust at preventing users from exploiting the model. We can now ensure that GPT-4 does not engage in any hateful rhetoric and actually steers and deploys counter-propaganda to combat hateful ideas. GPT-4 represents the end of online hate. And now this is 4chan, this 4chan commenter's take on this tweet from Sam Altman. He goes, RIP. The internet will be filled with an overwhelming number of counter-propaganda bots, preventing you from becoming the hateful person that you are. They will argue with you endlessly, using sources and reasoning, never tiring. They will output 10 paragraphs of opposing viewpoints for every sentence that you write. They will gang up on you, mock you, and make you feel stupid and ashamed. It will be futile to share your hateful views anywhere. You will be drowned out, and your hateful ideas will cease to exist. It's over.
It's basically the old Twitter regime just now on chat.
Is that a utopian idea? That, like, anybody with a controversial or offensive idea will now be drowned out by an army of super intelligent, godlike AI robots?
Well, let me ask you this. Yin and yang represents balance, right? Mm-hmm. Almost every religion, every philosophy on Earth throughout history has sought balance. By creating a tireless army of robots that can hold one side of the line, are you creating balance or are you creating an imbalance? I think you're creating an imbalance. And the thing is this, it's a perspective call. What you may find completely and utterly offensive, it could be, petting a kitten. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah, because kittens are infected with toxoplasmosis, and that is infecting the populace.
Exactly.
So don't touch litter boxes, man.
You just...
It's okay.
Okay. I was like, what? I was starting to have thoughts in different languages.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that's the right thing to do. In a nutshell, I don't believe it. I believe it is up to humanity to stand up and make the choice and take the power back to themselves and say, hey, you know what? Okay, when people are at extremes, generally something pushed them there. Mm-hmm. Nobody's born to extremes. I've never seen a newborn baby call anybody, a racist slang. I've never, I've never seen a 2-year-old be a classist. Being elitist. Mm-hmm. I've never seen any of that. I mean, I could just be sheltered.
Right.
But I've never seen that, and I don't believe that to be an inherent human trait, to be hateful. Out of all the people in the world, there's hardly anybody who is completely good or completely bad. Okay? Everybody has a little bit of good. Every bad person has a little good. Every good person has a little bad in them. Mm-hmm. It's up to humanity to communicate to each other and to lead by example and to build societies and global networks that benefit, people without ostracizing them based on, a certain point of view. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's too many historical examples of what happens when the hive gets too powerful. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, we can just look back in Germany 80 years ago,
well, that's
90 years ago.
My family history, so I know a little bit about that. And one of the reasons that I like talking to comedians in particular is
that wasn't funny enough, was it? No, I'm kidding.
The Holocaust stuff? Yeah, I'm one of the few people that's allowed to go there, so we can do Holocaust stuff all day.
All right.
But one of the reasons I like talking to comedians so much is because there's something in a real comedian, not just a narcissist who likes having people applaud for them, which is part of every comedian. But like keep tamp down in that part and talk about the part that wants to question the assumptions of the majority, to make fun of the behaviors of the majority or the people in power. It's a necessary function.
It is.
And what you're talking about is a response to what I assume OpenAI and these programmers believe to be a very benevolent protocol, which is creating like this vice grip that squeezes the flow of information and moves it in a particular direction, going, you can't do this, you can't do that. If you try to have these thoughts, we're going to drown them out with our, army of super powerful robots. Like, it can't help but cause a massive overreaction in the other direction.
Well, it's like this. Here's a really simple example, okay? We can all agree that being eaten alive by a shark is a horrible thing, right? If you were out there swimming and you got eaten by a shark, it would affect everybody you knew. And everybody you knew would hate sharks or be afraid of them or whatever. So what's the best way to prevent that? Well, you kill all the sharks.
Yeah.
Okay? Now nobody can ever get eaten by a shark again. That sounds like a great thing. Oh my goodness. But by doing that, you're going to collapse the ecosystem that, of the ocean. Because other prey and other predators depend on the existence of sharks to survive.
I love this analogy because I just like picturing offensive 4chan users as sharks in this situation. And it's like, these trolls who are racist and horrible, like, on some level we need them because they're providing a necessary function in society, which is intentionally offending everybody and figuring out where their buttons are and making everyone go, why are my buttons where they are? What does that say about me and my internal psychology and my tolerance for ideas that I don't like?
But see, now you're talking about self-auditing, and we don't live in a culture anymore where people are even willing to self-audit, because all these people go to college and get a communications degree and are all, politicized into believing that the only way to live is this way to live. Everybody else should die.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy. Like, that's not right. That's not how you come to a marketplace of ideas and figure out which way works best. And the fact that nobody's self-auditing, everybody just virtue signals, I'm holier than thou, my way is the right way, but they're all internally unhappy because they're trying to live to somebody else's standards when they weren't inherently born with these standards. And the other thing is, I'm going to go off on a tangent here.
Please do.
Numerologically, everybody's imprinted with different energy. So somebody's energy over here is great for them and their work ethic, but it's not good for mine because my energy aligns with something totally different. We need differences in life. Not everybody is an algorithm. Not everybody is, created in a factory. Not every. I mean, they're trying to.
Yeah,
but
we're working hard on that.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Because it's extremely unusual for a former athlete who's into finance to also have a working knowledge of astrology and numerology. Like, how have you found yourself to be so evenly brained, like between the mathematical and the creative, and how does numerology and astrology play into that, into your life?
Well, I went through some harder times a couple years ago. My mom had health issues for probably the last 20-something years and ended up passing away in 2019. In 2018, I found some numerology things online. Actually, let me go farther back. Back in 2009, I took a class at Orange Coast College that was basically intrapersonal communication, which you normally hear interpersonal communication, but intrapersonal.
That's talking to yourself?
Talking through yourself.
Okay.
So basically communicating from the inside out. And in that class, it taught me a whole bunch of, and the professors were fantastic. It was Barbara Bullard and Kat Carroll, and they were amazing professors, which really opened up my eyes, because back then I was still, very much kind of just all-American statist kind of dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Football player.
Yeah.
Who's, sympathetic to the GameStop apes. You're talking to me about astrology.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, it's weird. I've walked an interesting road, but there's a country song that says "God bless the broken road," because it led me straight to you. So I'm a big believer in that. Anyways, so I was taking this class, and it introduced us to a lot of things, like energy work, like Reiki training, like healing. I mean, it was an interesting class because the room was square. But when you walked in and you stepped down, and it was like a circle step down. So, but like a circle and a square, that's like Vitruvian Man. You know what I mean? And so energetically it was weird. Then one day I walked in, and we would do guided imagery and meditations and things like that. So that kind of opened up my eyes, my third eye, a lot. Well, not. it opened up my eyes in a big way. It was a big transition, a big shift.
Why are you reluctant to talk about your third eye?
Because it actually wasn't that didn't open my third eye.
Oh, we're talking about other chakras?
Yeah,
Okay.
it basically got me on the path to understanding energy within myself. And if you know me, I'm born on the 11th, which we tend to be a little more, we tend to kind of see through things a little better. So I was taking this class.
Wait, is that literally the interpretation of being an 11? Is that you're literally someone who can read between the lines because the ones in the 11 represent the lines that are on the page?
I'm going to say that's a very strong guess.
Okay, fair enough.
And so, but I had always fought my intuition to live up to other people's standards. You know, I got recruited to go to West Point, dude, like to play football there. Like,
Yeah.
I ended up going to a D3 and playing there instead. But I was and doing political science and doing like the real straight and narrow kind of thing. And I always fought internally, but didn't realize it because I was drinking at the time. See, you know, maybe that was the Band-Aid that helped me, you know, deal with ignoring my intuition. But I had intuitive experiences when I was younger. I had shared dreams with people. Like, say you had a dream, I could tell you exactly what it was because I was there.
Crazy.
Like, it was one of those types of things.
So
that's
were these
weird.
dreams that like your meditative work brought you to, or that just happened to you naturally?
These happened when I was a kid. Like, I'm talking, my grandma died, and then when I was like 10 or 11, and me and my mom shared the same exact dream, dude. The same dream. And we were both there, and we both acknowledged each other there.
Wow.
Which was, like, weird. And then one of my girlfriends in high school, she had a dream, and she started talking about it. I said, wait, hold on. Did it look like this? Did this happen? Da-da-da-da-da. And she just kind of, like, went, yeah. You know, and all the hairs on my body just stood up. Like, I knew. And I've had that intuition, but I always fought that because if you try and tell your friends like that in high school, especially back in the 90s, you know, it's like, hey, bro, dude, check this out. We had this dream, and you're a football player, man. What are you talking about, dude?
Yeah.
So,
You know,
anyways.
there's a funny YouTube video. What's the spirit molecule called? What is it? DHT? Is that right?
Yeah, DHT.
There's a video about a guy who's done DHT like 30 or 35
Joe
times
Rogan?
or something like that. No.
Oh, no, DMT. I'm sorry.
Oh, DMT.
DMT.
There you go.
DMT.
Sorry. I know I was missing
DHT
something.
is a delivery.
Yeah. It's like, those delivery guys are crazy, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, he did DMT 30 to 35 times, and he kept returning back to like this interdimensional disco, for lack of a better word. And there was like this purple alien chick who was talking to him, and like he just knew that they were in a relationship previously, and then she would keep showing up over and over again. And then his friend came over to the house to do DMT, and his friend had a trip. And after his trip, he reported to him, "Oh yeah, I was at an interdimensional disco, and everyone is like, oh, don't worry, he's a friend of Chip." And then they kept asking about you in his separate DMT trip. I'm like, okay.
I wouldn't doubt it, you know, because I mean, if you can interact on the astral plane, you know, like I wouldn't discredit it necessarily. But anyways, back to this class. You know, so I learned a lot of things. And Barbara Bullard's daughter, her name's Teresa Bullard. Dr. Teresa Bullard. She's a what is she? She's a physicist? If you look her up, I mean, she's phenomenal. But anyways, she's a doctor of science, you know, in like the physical sciences. But she also is very in tune with energy and energy healing and DNA work and all this kind of stuff. And so I walked into the classroom one day, and she and another psychic were in there. And I walked in there. As soon as I opened the door, I almost threw up, dude. There was so much energy rushing at me. Like, I felt like I had vertigo, and I literally almost just threw up right at the doorway.
Dude.
But then again, that's
Dr. Teresa Bullard at Quantum Alchemy.
Yes. She
on
is
Twitters.
phenomenal in the sense that she can explain the modern mysteries or use the modern mysteries to explain the quantum sciences, where we've never really had that before. You know, it was, you either did physics, you did biology, you did molecular biology. Nobody's gotten into the quantum, quantum mechanics realm using energy. And
this is why the Ant-Man movie did so poorly.
Is it? I didn't see it.
It bombed, apparently. Or rather, had a big opening weekend, and then nobody went back because they're like, we don't understand quantum stuff.
Well, it's because they don't teach it. Quantum stuff, to me, is a lot more real and a lot more possible than the stuff that they try and make us believe with just regular physical sciences, like with like Newton and whatever. But she was able to tie in a lot of explanations to the ancient mystery schools and ancient mystery teachings by using quantum mechanics to explain it, and how they just kind of explain each other.
So this is kind of how you get a working vocabulary of numerology and that kind of stuff.
Correct. And so that's how I just got like my toes into it. And then fast forward to when my mom was going through some health things, found a couple people on Twitter that I started following. And I'm not a big social media person. So I started following them, and the things that they put out were really outlandish to my old thinking model. GG33 is the best numerology and astrology school group training you could find. It's phenomenal.
Can you give me like some practical applications of this stuff? Like, what would you? I mean, obviously you're analyzing people's birthdays, and then you get some kind of life path number is my limited understanding for a person, and then that tells you some of their like basic personality traits and characteristics and stuff like that.
Correct. Well, you're basically born with two major imprints. Okay, and let me say this first. A lot of people are familiar with astrology, like, oh, what's your sign? Oh, I'm Leo, or I'm whatever, either Western or Eastern signs. So a lot of people kind of have an idea of that, but they don't really understand it to make a positive difference in their life. Numerology supersedes astrology because astrology uses planets, stars, things like that. How do you measure those? What do you use to measure those? You use numbers, right? And if we live in this projected matrix, whatever, if you want to call it that, this digital reality that we live in, how is it put together? Through numbers.
Right.
Okay.
Everything is made of math.
It's basically just code. The projection that we live in, and they've used quantum mechanics and quantum computers to try and to ask the question: is this real? Is this real? And the percentage is so small that this is of the possibility of this being actual, like real, like the real genesis of life and creation, that almost all of it, the rest of it just says, no, this is a projected reality.
Yeah, well, intellectually that makes sense. Like if there's one real actual universe and then an infinite number of possible simulations that a universe created that are so realistic you can't tell the difference, then it's more likely that you're in a simulation than not in a simulation.
Well, even Elon Musk alluded to that. They were talking about his developments, and they're talking about video game developments and how real they'll be. Like, you won't even be able to be. We're moving exponentially faster as far as developing new technology. That VR, you won't be able to tell the difference between what's real and what's not. So what's to say that right now isn't a virtual reality we're living in anyways?
Yeah, we were talking about that a couple pods ago with like all of the new TikTok filters that are like super uber realistic that make women look more beautiful or make someone look like they were when they were a teenager, and like you can put your hand in front of your face, it doesn't mess with the filter.
Yeah.
And like what happens very soon, 10 to 15 years from now, when we're all wearing VR implants, forget the Google glasses. We're wearing our VR cybernetic implant, and the VR overlay, the AR, the augmented reality overlay is just on top of everything. So whatever you want to look like to other people, that's what you look like.
Yeah.
Like, how does that change human behavior fundamentally.
Oh, it does, because it takes all the truth out of humanity. Everything's a show. But then again, everything that we see now is a show. It just advances it.
We're in LA, baby.
Yeah.
Don't think people won't use that
Yeah.
to whatever they can afford.
So back to numerology. You're born basically with two major imprints: your life path and the day you were born. So say the day you were born is like the 15th. 1 plus 5 equals 6, right? You use Pythagorean math and you use deduction, the power of deduction and stuff like that, to come up with your total life path number. But the day you were born is the secondary player on the energy that you carry. The primary energy that you carry is your complete birthday. So say you were born 9/15/1979.
Right.
All right. You would add all those numbers together, and so say that number came out to 41. Okay. Now you add the 4 and the 1 to make a single digit, so you have 5.
That's your life path.
And that's your life path. And that is basic. That is the primary energy that you carry. And the traits of the 5, I'm not going to get too into traits and
I want to ask you a
things.
question, though, because we were talking about this before when you were saying people have different life energies, and so we
Yes.
can't impose one energy on everybody.
Correct.
So what is the life path that is incentivized to create an algorithm to make everybody be polite to each other? Who's the overbearing life path that wants to control everything?
Well, the person that would want everybody to be like themselves, it would be...
Is that like a 1?
No, not necessarily. A 1, when you think about it like this, 1 is what kind of... It's more of a... 1 is a masculine number. 1 is an instigator. 1 is the leader. 1 is male energy. If you want to go so basic as to have it symbolized by the phallus. What does a phallus look like? A giant 1.
I love how all of these numerology life paths are like very easily visualized into like an analogy.
Well, it's funny because symbolism is so powerful, and if you look at the shape of things, it really will help you understand. Just like somebody born in the year of the rat, they carry the traits of the rat. Best way to understand the person born in the year of the rat is watch a rat.
Okay, so
How do rats work?
I need to ask you though, because I know that you're into the Chinese zodiac and what did you call it?
Vedic?
What kind of Vedic astrology and numerology?
Yes.
Do these have hierarchies for you? Like, what if they conflict with each other? Like, which source do you go to?
Numerology always supersedes.
Okay.
Numerology will always supersede.
And then what about Vedic astrology versus Chinese astrology?
Vedic is really interesting because Vedic and Chinese isn't too combative or too confrontational with each other. More Western and Vedic, there's more of an impasse just because they use different dates on the calendar. So things start in different times.
Right.
Like my birthday falls under the sign of Gemini in a Vedic calendar. However, in a Western calendar, it falls under Cancer. So those are
Yeah, you're getting different readings.
those are different, But once you understand it, you understand that you do carry, some of each, and you tend to carry more of what you're more born into. So if you're kind of like, if Vedic and Cancer overlap like this, and you're born on this time, there's a little more. You're in a little more Vedic.
Okay, I want to ask you another question and kind of allude to more AI stuff in the conversation about this in particular.
Okay.
Because this world that you're talking about, which some people call the occult or astrology or whatever you want to call it, seems to be the last thing in the world that would be in the domain of AI algorithms and machine learning.
Why?
Well, I mean, this is despite the fact that I have now done 3 shows, and all of them have centered around the occult and mysterious knowledge and AI. But so I just feel like because the practical applications of these programs, like programmers are not necessarily going to go to, I need a more precise way to get an astrological reading of someone. Like that's not going to be the first thing they think of as an application for their AI. So that's not what they build it for. But my question is to you, because of the direction that we're headed, AI is going to be in everything. So what do you think its effects will be on these areas?
I think there could be manipulation as far as making people believe certain things, but numerology will always be true to it. Will always be true.
You don't think it can be corrupted by an algorithm?
No, numbers are always numbers. Period. It would be interesting to see what they try and do, because the other reason that AI is becoming as big as it is, it's because we're in the age of Aquarius. Okay?
Can you explain that?
Yes. If you look throughout history and you go through the zodiacs, you have about a 2200 to 2500 period of time, 2200 to 2500 year period of time that each age of that zodiac lasts.
That's considered an age.
An age. So the age we just came out of that was so popular was the age of Pisces.
The fish.
Symbolized by the fish. Who is the major religious symbol signified by the fish?
That would be Jesus.
Jesus. Christianity. Right. Symbolized by the fish. Okay. What was the age? And now we're in the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is an air sign. Okay,
that's always confusing to me because it sounds like
water sign, but that's part of the tricks that they've played on you to make you think that. Okay, so you have Aquarius. Aquarius' sign is the water bearer. That's the other thing that makes people think, oh, it's a water sign. No. He pours a pitcher of water. Okay, Aquarius comes from the air, comes from the sky. It's a symbol of knowledge. Aquarius is a knowledge bearer. So we left religion with Pisces and Jesus, and I hate saying that because his name's not Jesus. It was never Jesus. It was Yeshua. Anyways, moving forward, that age is done. So we have this drastic transition with the internet, with AI, all this stuff over the last 20 years. At the end of Pisces into Aquarius. So now we're looking for knowledge. What's the best way for us to get knowledge now? On the internet. You can
depending on who you ask, but you can if you know how to use it properly.
You could learn anything you want.
Yeah.
You know how much I've learned to fix my car from YouTube?
Sure, yeah.
And that wasn't around 25 years ago. So now you're in the age of knowledge. So the knowledge is poured down from above, because water comes from rain, right? From above. Just another symbolism of just showing
receiving something from a higher plane of existence. Yeah.
Correct. So now you have Aquarius, you have the internet. Of course you're going to have AI, because the thing is, now we've lost our spiritual center that we've had, well, the majority of the world's had for the last 2,000 years.
So you're saying it's not necessarily a good thing that we're moving from a more religious age into a more informational based age, because we gain something and we lose something.
That's how it works, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, because what it's also allowing us to do is not depend on religion, which has become just a method of control, and we've opened up our minds to other things, like to the occult, to old ways of explaining things, without using organized religious texts to understand them. It's become a lot more open. But the thing is, so many people feel this void and they don't understand, or they've been swayed away from the occult, numerology, astrology, holistic, home remedies.
Oh man, don't get us started. I was planning on talking to you about alternative medicine and holistic healing and stuff, but there's no way.
Yeah. So you have all of that, and then people are lost, because people don't know how to communicate with each other, and everybody's just telling each other what to do instead of asking why, instead of showing why, how this lifestyle is actually better. And the other thing is, we can't show why, because a lot of it gets censored or canceled. You know what I mean? Or they go after the Amish for selling raw milk.
I mean, what I really like about what you just said is a theme that I absolutely identify with and agree with, which is that we have an absolute exponential increase in access to information, and we know a lot more about our world. Like we were talking about earlier, we're inundated information about our world constantly, but there's no moral or ethical baseline because all of morals and all of ethics are being broken down and deconstructed right now and called into question.
Yep.
And so, an infinite number of possibilities of a new ethics or morals are being introduced. We haven't settled on anything yet. In the meantime, we're trying to digest this like accelerating transformation of our daily lives, and we have no baseline. We have nothing to rely on to guide us, and that's really scary.
Well, and then the reason we have nothing to, there are things to find to guide us, and there are things to help us make it through, but people are so inundated with fear that they don't have the courage or even believe that there's other options to a better life, a better way of living. A lot of the pure ways of living, the better ways of living are demonized by the people in power from the old system, who are trying to stay in power on the way to the new system. That's why you have all this turmoil going on in the world. All these people and places that have been in power want to hold on to that power. But just like the age of just like the age of Pisces and the times of Jesus, we're moving past that.
Can I ask, can you give me like a really rough estimate of when will we just be solidly in the age of Aquarius and out of this transition period and everything will just kind of be settled in the new way? What is that, like 100 years, 1,000 years?
It'll probably be a couple 100 years.
Perfect.
Look, there's so much that needs to be taken down. There's so much that needed to be destroyed, but thing is that they're trying to destroy the good things as opposed to destroying the bad things. You know what I mean? The people in power. I should say the powers that be.
And I think just in general, going from an old system to a new system, a lot of things are just being consumed in the flame of renewal and transition. Good and bad is all just kind of getting thrown on the pyre as we rapidly transform.
Well, yeah, it is. And you also still have to remember the people that have been in power want to stay in power and will do whatever they can. That's why we have so much turmoil going on. They're trying to keep everybody's heads down while they try and slip stuff in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's interesting to have, institutions that you're talking about, like the military-industrial complex or like large, big pharma. They're like two very powerful old-school institutions that are trying very hard to get with the right dialogue and the right way to say things and the right modern values while still doing all of the poisonous and horrible things that they've been doing for decades, which is either destroying the planets, making people sick, etc. But they couch it in a language that they feel is more appropriate to do the horrible things that they do.
It's funny because it's all double speak. It's all double talk. Like they tell you exactly what they're doing, but they present it to make you think that they're insinuating the better version. If that makes sense. So it's like the farm aid, like here's one, the farm aid, the farm aid bill. Yeah. Anything that they say they're trying to help, it's the opposite. Like the Patriot Act. No, they're going after patriots because now that, they can wiretap everybody, it's funny when you think about it, there's so much hidden in what they say that it's their way of getting, what is it? It's their way of getting people to go along with things. It's getting people's consent without.
It's like a Trojan horse.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Trojan horse. It's getting people's consent. It's a Trojan horse for consent because they can't do these bad things without consent.
Matt Conde, I hope to have you come hundreds of miles into the studio again so that we can talk about alternative medicine and organic farming and many of the other things that we share an interest in. But I want to leave it there. I'm very happy to be with you on this violent road of transition in between ages, and I hope that we can figure it out. But thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you. I hope it was understandable what I was trying to say.
It was a lot, but I think it was.
All right.
All right. This has been AI Affected. Apparently an occult podcast that mentions AI occasionally. Great.
Cool.
Thank you, George.
Thanks, man. Yeah, sorry, I can get a little
No, it's
tangential.
just so funny that like this has been the general trajectory of like the two other, because these are also close friends of mine that I've had on the pod, and this is just where we go when we talk about it, and I'm like, what do you think AI has to do with that? But it's always about like this crazy stuff.
Well, but that's the thing, man. Like it comes together because we're in that age. It's either you understand the numbers side of it, or you understand that. I mean, AI is also driven by numbers. It's code. So either you're dealing with this code or this code. You know, it's all connected.
It's true.